Hello everyone, welcome to Online Educator. Today we'll be posting a video about the basics of anatomy. Anatomy is a subject which is studied by all the medical healthcare professionals. So we'll start with the very basics of it. So let us get started. What is human anatomy? Human anatomy is the scientific study of body structures. Some of these structures are very small and can only be observed and analyzed with the assistance of a microscope. Other larger structures can be readily seen, manipulated, measured, and weighed. The word anatomy itself is derived from Greek root which means to cut apart. Human anatomy was first studied by observing the exterior of the body and observing the wounds of soldiers and other injuries. Later, physicians were allowed to dissect bodies of the dead in order to augment their knowledge. Now, when the body is dissected, its structures are cut apart in order to observe their physical attributes and their relationships to one another. For example, an artery could be lying posterior to a specific muscle, or it could be lying adjacent medially to another nerve or laterally to a vein. This is just an example we'll get to know more about when we go into many other details. Dissection is still used in medical schools, anatomical courses, and pathological labs. However, the use of or the development of the imaging techniques have made it easier for the clinicians to visualize structures inside the living body without the need to cut apart, such as the CT scan, which can help in diagnosis of a cancerous tumor, or the use of X-ray in order to diagnose a fractured bone. Like most other disciplines, anatomy also has areas of specialization, which are cross anatomy and microscopic anatomy. Cross anatomy is also otherwise known as macroscopic anatomy, as the word suggests. Macro means large, so thus it is the study of structures which are large enough to be seen without the use of magnification. Whereas on the other hand, we have the microscopic anatomy, which is the study of structures that can only be observed using the use of microscope. Okay, now the third part is anatomists usually take two general approaches in order to study body structures, which is the many body structures. Now these are of two kinds: regional anatomy and systemic anatomy. Regional anatomy is also known as topographic anatomy. Okay, so regional anatomy considers the organization of human body as major parts or segments. As shown in the picture, you can see a main body which consists of the head, neck, and trunk. The trunk is further subdivided into thorax, and then comes the abdomen, back, and pelvis, or also known as perineum, and you have the paired upper limbs and lower limbs. All the major parts may be further subdivided into areas and region. Regional anatomy is a method of studying the body structure by focusing attention on a specific part, that is the head. You can say the head, or a specific area, that could be face, or a region, that could be the orbital or eye region. It also includes examining the arrangement and relationship of various systemic structures that includes muscles, nerves, and arteries, etc. within it. And then usually continuing the study to adjacent region in an ordered sequence. Okay, when studying anatomy by this approach, it is important to routinely put the regional anatomy into the context of what the adjacent region or parts may be as a whole. So when you study one part, make sure you link it to the other one, otherwise your whole study goes into waste. Regional anatomy also recognizes the body's organization by layers, such as the skin. You'll take the example of skin. In skin, you have the superficial skin, subcutaneous tissue, deep fascia covering the deeper structures of muscle. You have the skeleton and cavities, inside which we have the viscera. Now, viscera means the internal organs. Now, many of these deeper structures are partially evident beneath the body's outer covering and may be studied. Now, this structures which are seen, or which can be easily be seen by the eye, comes under a specific area of anatomy which is known as the surface anatomy. Surface anatomy is an essential part of study. Why? Because it provides a knowledge of what lies under the skin and what structures are perceptible to touch, that means that are palpable. Now, palpation, from the word palpable, we can go to palpation. Palpation is a technique which is used in used with observation and listening. Probably you're going to use this term when you're into your practical life or when you're learning about assessment. So palpation is a technique in which you use your hands in order to know about the structures and about the condition of a muscle or a nerve that could be present. And it is usually used during physical examination, and it is very, very important to know the surface anatomy. The aim of this method is to visualize. What it helps is that what you'll be learning throughout the anatomy, physiology, and many other subjects, you can finally incorporate it to your practical life using this technique, which is known as palpation. So you have an idea of what is there. For that, you visualize the structures, and then you can always go back mentally to know what it was. So it helps to visualize, recall distinct mental images of structures what we have previously studied or will be studying, and contour to the surface or are palpable beneath it, and in clinical practice to distinguish any unusual or abnormal findings. So in some cases where you need to touch or palpate a muscle, for example for spasm, when you palpate the muscle, you'll get to know whether there's a tender point or not. So for this special technique, you need to know what is palpation and where specifically do you need to palpate for a tender point. Regional study of deeper structures and abnormalities in a living person is now possible by means of radiographic and sectional imaging and endoscopy. As I mentioned earlier, the development of new imaging techniques. So, and what is endoscopy? It might be your a field of study, it might not be, but just to provide a brief introduction or brief review about what endoscopic techniques are using, they are done using insertable flexible fiber optic device to examine the internal structures such as the interior of stomach, also to demonstrate the living anatomy. Now there are two methods of studying regional anatomy. Those are cross-sections and dissections. Cross-sections are carefully prepared dissections for the demonstration of anatomical structures, are also useful. However, learning is most efficient and retention is highest when it is done using something that is known as first-hand dissection. It was in 1770, Dr. William Hunter, a distinguished Scottish anatomist, stated that dissection alone teaches us where we may cut or inspect the living body with freedom and dispatch. So then we have the second type of anatomy, systemic anatomy. It is the study of organ-body systems that work together to carry out complex functions. The basic systems and the field of study are mentioned here. The first one being the integumentary system, and dermatology consists of the skin and its appendages, that are the hair, nails, and sweat glands, for example, and the subcutaneous tissue just beneath it. The skin is an extensive sensory organ, forms the body's outer protective covering and container. Then we have the skeletal system, also known as osteology, consists of bones and cartilage. It provides our basic shape and support for the body and is what the muscular system acts on to produce movement. It also protects vital organs such as the heart, lungs, and pelvic organs. Then we have the articular system, which is known as arthrology, consists of joints and their associated ligaments, connecting the bony parts of the skeletal system and providing the sites at which movements occur. The muscular system, also known as myology, consists of the skeletal muscles that contract to move or position parts of the body, example the bones that articulate at joints, or smooth and cardiac muscles that propels, expels, or controls the flow of fluids and contains substances. The nervous system, neurology, consists of the central nervous system first, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. Then we have the peripheral nervous system, which contains the nerve and the ganglia, together with the motor and sensory nerve endings. The nervous system controls and coordinates the function of the organ system, enabling the body's responses and activities within its environment. The sense organs, including the olfactory organ, sense of smell, eye or visual system, ophthalmology, ear, sense of hearing and balance, otology, and gustatory, sense of taste, are often considered with the nervous system. in the systemic anatomy. The circulatory system and geology consist of cardiovascular and lymphatic system, which function in parallel to transport the body fluids. As we mentioned, the cardiovascular system is known as the cardiology, consists of the heart and blood vessels that propel and conduct blood through the body, delivering oxygen, nutrients, and hormones to cells and removing their waste products. The lymphatic system is a network of lymphatic vessels that withdraw excess tissue fluid, which is known as lymph, from the body's interstitial intracellular fluid compartment, filters it through the lymph nodes and returns it to the bloodstream. Then the next we have the alimentary or digestive or gastroenterology, consisting of the digestive tract from the mouth to the anus and with all its associated organs and glands that function in ingestion, mastication, that is chewing, deglutition, swallowing, digestion, and absorption of food, and then finally the elimination of solid waste, that is feces, remaining after the nutrients have been absorbed. The respiratory system, which is known as the pulmonology, consisting of the air passages and lungs that supply oxygen to the blood for cellular respiration and eliminate carbon dioxide from it. The diaphragm and the larynx control the flow of air through the system, which may produce the tone in the larynx that is further modified by tongue, teeth, and lips into speech. The urinary system, urology, consists of the kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra, which filter blood and subsequently produce, transport, store, and intermittently excrete urine, which is the liquid water. Then we have the genital reproductive system, gynecology for female and andrology for male, consisting of the gonads, ovaries, and testes that produce oocytes, eggs, and sperms, the ducts that transport them, and the genitalia that enable their union. After conception, the female reproductive tract nourishes and delivers the fetus. Then we have the endocrine system, endocrinology, consisting of the specialized structures that secrete hormones, including discrete ductless endocrine glands such as the thyroid gland, isolated and clustered cells of the gut and blood vessels, and specialized nerve endings. Then these excrete something that is known as hormones. Hormones are organic molecules that are carried by the circulatory system to distant effector cells in all parts of the body. The influence of the endocrine system is broadly distributed as that of a nervous system, and these hormones influence metabolism and many other processes such as the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and finally the childbirth. Now, all of these different kind of system functions that we have studied or we have had a look on do not work in isolation. The passive skeletal and articular systems and the active muscle system collectively constitute to a super system, the locomotor system or apparatus, which we know as the orthopedics, because they all work together in order to produce locomotion of the body. That means the movement of the body. And yes, then the last type of anatomy that we need to look on is clinical anatomy. It is what is known as the applied anatomy. It emphasizes aspects of bodily structures and function important in the practice of medicine, dentistry, and allied health sciences. Now, what this anatomy means is that it often involves inverting or reversing the thought process. For example, instead of studying or thinking that the action of a particular muscle is so and so, clinical anatomy will focus on how the absence of a particular muscle activity will be manifested. Instead of noting the particular nerve provides an innervation to the particular area of skin, clinical anatomy will focus more on the numbness in this area indicates the lesion to which nerve. So this is what all clinical anatomy is about. So as and when we are learning through different courses that will be coming up in the next upcoming videos, what as a working professional we need is to keep in our mind the clinical anatomical aspects. So here we come to an end. This is a basic idea of what we have had in today's lecture, and we'll stop the video here. And if you have any other topics that you want the videos to be made on in anatomy, physiology, or any other biomechanics of human motion, do let me know, and we'll be posting a video on that particular topic. If you have any other questions that you would like to post, do let me know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos. And I hope you liked the video. Please don't forget to like and share it on with your friends, because sharing is caring. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.